Very few games commit to their premise with the faithful adherence of Danganronpa trigger Happy Havoc, and with good reason. For even in the vast spectrum of visual novels, Danganronpa creates an especially unique atmosphere, and with the support of a wide variety of characters, the two are cast against one another expertly to produce an entertaining tale of intrigue, tension, mystery, and even comedy. Trigger Happy Havoc places you in the shoes of Makoto Neagi, an otherwise perfectly ordinary student who, to his great surprise, is accepted to the most acclaimed high school in the country, alongside 15 other exceptional students. However, his lofty expectations are subverted when upon his arrival, instead of the humdrum of homework and homeroom, he finds himself somewhere far less hospitable, trapped in a cutthroat game of life and death that's overlooked by the school's enigmatic, hilarious, and seemingly omnipotent headmaster, Monokuma. The double-dealing, black and white, two-faced teddy bear explains with glee to the group of students assembled that the only way to escape is to murder one of your classmates and get away with it. And so despair descends on Hope's Peak, and the students are forced to cooperate to unveil the greater mystery whilst juggling the constant threat of betrayal, else they'd be stuck in the school forevermore. Aside from reading and listening to the story unfold, Danganronpa's gameplay is simple. Player's time is segregated into 3 other areas: interacting and building relationships with your classmates outside of class hours in so-called daily life, basic navigation and exploration of the school, and finally, uncovering clues and proceeding to solve a case at trial during deadly life. In daily life, forming bonds with your fellow students, though ancillary to completing class trials and progressing the tale, is of both social and functional value. Doing so will grant you precious information about your mysterious colleagues, and amongst the diverse cast at Hope's Peak, there's bound to be someone to pique your interests, even though doing so can make events even more tragic when misfortune arises. Gathering information is not only useful to filling in backstory, establishing context, and helping to assess motive and agency for many characters, but maximizing a bond will also grant you a more tangible reward in the form of a skill that makes the treacherous form of the class trials less onerous. Following a class trial, new areas of the school will open up when an uneasy peace has been achieved, and players are allowed to wander the school without searching for evidence related to a specific case. This is one of the game's mystery-solving strengths, dangling a clue in front of you and allowing you to contemplate the greater mystery, but never for too long, as another case inevitably rears its ugly head. Deadly Life, on the other hand, is far more duplicitous. Upon the announcement of treachery, players are granted a finite amount of time to uncover as much information and evidence as possible from the crime scenes, guided and supported by the accounts of your fellow students. Once all the evidence is compiled, players must endure the slow descent with their classmates to the courtroom to solve the case or be faced with punishment. This is perhaps the most enjoyable segment of the case solving, a brief interlude in which one can slowly piece together their own suspicions before the class trial even begins. There's immense satisfaction to be found when your own solitary evaluation of the evidence yields the correct suspicion. However, this is not always as simple as it sounds, as lies and hearsay can pollute the truth. The lives of everyone are at stake, as failing to apprehend the culprit will result in everyone but the murderer being punished. Trials begin with the non-stop debate, a long round of discussion of the relevant facts with all students present. Players must shatter any lies or notice any conflicts that your classmates present as they attempt to obscure the truth or muddy the waters for their own ulterior purposes. Players must also recognize which evidence is relevant in particular situations, or attempt to pacify some of the more obstinate students. In all, the trials are tense and paced with plenty of revelation to keep them interesting. However, they can sometimes become frustrating and obtuse. Too often are you found pondering the correct approach to take to counteract a lie, as you can often find conflict between many pieces of evidence and certain accounts, yet be unsure which particular piece of evidence the game wants you to use. A conundrum that's compounded by the inclusion of using someone's own words against them. Though these elements can often lead to irritation, the core of the trials is entertaining. Every piece of information brings you closer to uncovering the total truth of your situation and is thus rewarding, as fitting together all the clues to form a clear, cohesive picture takes patience and imagination. When it comes to those with whom you're allied, or rather, with whom you're competing, the cast is diverse and funny, and is undoubtedly one of the game's biggest strengths. There's never a dull moment at Hope's Peak, From uncovering someone's troubled past to enduring the clash of personalities that so often end in entertaining and hilarious outcomes, or attempting to soothe the inevitable discord that arises. There's a surprising amount of depth too, whether it's the unwavering determination of an affluent progeny to emerge victorious, the many faces of a poker prodigy, or the questionable honesty of the ultimate moral compass. And that's before we even begin to mention the enigmatic, bipolar teddy bear. Each character presents an enjoyable, if absurd, caricature. And though that often means they're not all believable or particularly relatable, the steadfast commitment to their personalities in dialogue and animation makes them highly memorable. As is the case with so many other titles, Danganronpa's soundtrack is essential in capturing the charming extremes of the game. The thrill of discovery, the terror of distrust, the empty celestial tones of the abandoned school, or even the inherent silliness of Monokuma. It also serves an important function in other ways, lulling you into a false sense of security through its looping ambience, which is suddenly torn away upon a morbid revelation by the faster, more immediate tracks. This reinforces the transience of peace and the ubiquity of threat, that even in the quieter, more personal moments, danger is always lurking just around the corner. The game's presentation is also worth noting, not for any particular beauty or cinematic quality, but for the effect it produces. As a visual novel, there are no 3D models for characters apart from cutscenes, so animation is restricted to a finite number of poses. This gives the characters just enough life to be believable, but no more. Any bloodstains are rendered pink, and any violence is depicted comically or in large, slow animations. This creates the perfect balance of empathy and intrigue, creating the shock of uncovering a corpse, yet not causing too visceral a reaction. The player is rendered just remote enough to enjoy being part of what seems like an experiment to test the breadth of human desperation, while remaining invested in its characters' outcomes. All good things must come to an end, and though it may leave some unsatisfied in certain areas, Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc reaches all the high notes of mystery, machination, drama, tragedy and joy, and presents them with a celebration of its own eccentricity and absurdity that's infectiously charming.